Hello, everybody, and welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today it is Friday. It's Friday, and today is April the 7th, 2023. Are we at the 7th? We're a week in already? Holy cow. April's a quarter of the way done. And that 100-degree Fahrenheit temperature is coming. Oh, I think it's going to be here next week here in Phoenix, and it'll be relentless for the next 4 months. But hey, I'll live through it like I do every year. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you for the earlier contributions from our good friends Buster, Peter Laycock, as well as Mark Gaines and our friend John Wilson here in the chat. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. Also in the super chats during the live super chat, Kevin Crowley contributed $4.99. And our friend John Wilson, another contribution of $20, who says for you to take out Camera Girl for Easter lunch. Thank you, John, and or Jack. Peter Laycock again with another contribution of £10. Says, good evening, Carrie and Marlena, and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh right this moment is 43 degrees Fahrenheit or 6 degrees Celsius. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland. Well, thank you as always, Buster. Always good to see our familiar faces and our friends here in the chat room. And speaking of which, Planet Cryos with a $2 super chat. Says, I've got a fever of 101, but I'm here. Is that a Foreigner song? Hot-blooded? Well, it might be before Planet Krause's time. I think it was 102 is his fever. I can't remember the lyrics. And Luke Greenia says hello, as do Chris Johnson and, of course, Mark Baggett, Sarge Tech, OG Gaming, Ron Barnish, R2 Rasenin, and Garfield Rupe. Mortant joins us, as does Patrick Rousseau and Darren Gilholm. And just a bunch of names in here. I don't have time to go through everything, but thank you guys so much for hanging out. We've got a great show for you today, and that's because, you know, mini PCs are getting incredibly powerful and can save the average person a lot of money. So I want to give you an example here with a manufacturer I've never reviewed before. And this is a company called Geekom, Geekom. And they've got a number of mini PCs out there, but while I had been focusing on the lower end, today I want to focus on the higher end, not quite the top of the tier, but something that's likely more powerful than what you're using right now, and probably cost less money than what you paid for what you're using right now. Now, of course, there's going to be those of you out there who built a machine recently, or those of you who are into gaming and need the big graphics card, a big discrete graphics card, which of course you can add to these units externally, but nonetheless, likely whatever you paid for your system minus the GPU, this thing will cost you less. And this is not the same. Are you trying to get my attention? Yeah. This is not the same as, now I've lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
This is not the same as the earlier units, the units reviewed earlier in the broadcasts last 6 weeks, where again, we were looking at just the cheapest possible new Windows 11 compatible machines that essentially cost the same or less than what Microsoft wants just for the Windows 11 Pro software. Now, those machines, you're making a bit of a sacrifice because they're meeting minimum requirements, and they're doing so at a rock bottom price. As I mentioned, cheaper than the Windows 11 software. You're getting the whole computer. Now, what happens if you want to get something that's really more of an equivalent desktop replacement for something that's not scraping the bottom of the barrel, something that's up towards the top of the barrel? And so the folks over at Geekom sent us one of their latest mini PCs, and the one they sent us, thankfully, is been outfitted very, very generously. They do sell different configurations of RAM and storage space, and this one has the maximum amount of RAM and storage space they offer. So that's what I'm referring to. And of course, that's going to affect the price. I think your eyes are going to open big when you realize just how much power this little guy has. $2 in super chat from Richard Palmentier. Thank you, Richard, for supporting the channel. All right, I think this requires putting Camera Girl to work. So let's get Camera Girl off her butt. And we'll do the unboxing on camera. Now, I have already, you can thank me for this later, I've already taken this out of the box and went through the Windows update. It does seem all these pre-built machines are coming with Windows 21H2 instead of 22H2. I think all these updates are of critical importance, and so they've all been updated so we don't have to sit here trying to make up time, stalling for time while we wait for updates to finish. So if there's any updates on this, it'll just be what's happened in the last week. And are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, so let's go over to the close-up camera. Close-up camera, which should be this one right here. There you go, come on over. All right, let's focus down here. Here we've got the Mini IT11. Now, don't be tricked by the name. Geekom makes many IT11s. If I had a complaint, it's that they really should come up with different model numbers for all the different configurations they have of the Mini IT11, including different CPUs. And of course, the RAM and storage is always something that can be, in many cases, left out entirely. We call that bare bones, where you provide your own, or minimal, or maximized, right? And then, of course, that affects the price. But when you're getting a different CPU, I think that justifies a different model number. So if you're looking for these online, well, first of all, I've got all the links in the video notes below this video, as well as the fact that Geekom are having an Easter giveaway special, and be sure and check out their links directly to take advantage of those offers. If you search online, if you go to Amazon and look for Mini IT11, there's probably a half dozen models. Pay close attention to the specifications of which CPU, RAM, and storage is in the one you're looking at. Now, if we look at this one here on the back, we have our details right here, where it says Mini PC, and it's a Core i7 11390H Intel-based 11th gen CPU. They've got 16 gigs of RAM and 512. Oh, I thought this was a 1 terabyte. This isn't 32 and 1 terabyte, is it? Oh, I might have gotten this confused with another one. No, this is actually, now that I think about this, the 16 gig and the 512 is the model probably most people would buy, because the 32 gig 1 terabyte costs a bit more. And this one is very affordable considering all the power you're getting. And we're gonna get into that a little bit here once we go through this unboxing, just to give you some idea for comparison. So this is our box. This is how it ships. And let's just lift it up here. There it is. We get a little thank you card in here from the folks at Geekom. And looks like they appreciate your business, which is always good to see, with their contact information on the back if you have any questions or support needs. And they were founded in 2003, so you're looking at 20 years they've been in business. So I'm going to just put that back in here just to keep things together. And here we've got the Mini PC, which looks pretty much like any other Mini PC. We'll peel that off. And is there anything else I got to peel off? I think that's good. All right, so what do we have up front? We've got a USB Type-C that is USB 4. Yeah, USB 4. We've got a USB Type-A. We've got our headphone and headset jack right there. And of course our power on and off. Around the side, we've got sometimes they call it a K-lock or a Kensington lock. So this can be locked down with a steel cable so no one will steal it off the desk in a workplace. Then, of course, you've got your power input. You've got a display port output. You've got your LAN there. Can't remember if that's 1 gig or 2.5. I got to look that up. Then we've got 2 more USB 3.0s here, and an HDMI output, and a USB Type-C right there. And then coming around the back side here, or the final side, we've got an SD card reader. Now, you might look at that and you might say, hey, that's a pretty interesting configuration. But let me just show you something. When we go to, let's see, if we go to Amazon, and I'm going to just break away here for a minute from camera 1 so I can show you this. Let's see, where's my window capture? We're going to go, here it is. Okay, check this out. Where is it? There it is. Okay, so on the Amazon webpage for this product, and I actually have the title on this video incorrect. I'm going to correct it to the 16 gig. You'll see the price on this is $549.99, right? But if you look, Intel sells what is essentially the exact same unit. Memory card reader on the side, all the buttons on the front are the same, and it's on sale for only $100 more. Now you might be thinking, that's not right, that can't be right. Well, let's go back to the close-up camera. Here we go. And check this out. And look at this. So for $100 more, you can get the exact same computer. Get down, get the camera down. There we go. All right, let's turn them both. First of all, power button, headphone, microphone jack, headphone, microphone. Look, let's just do it this way. Isn't that interesting? So would you like to pay $100 more for this one? Or would you prefer to pay $100 less for this one? I mean, it's your choice, it's your money, I'm just saying. Now, the Intel unit, instead of USB 4, has Thunderbolt. But other than that, if we open these up, and we can in a little bit here, you'll see internally they're pretty much identical. So, isn't that interesting? I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting enough for me to invest in that just to make that live demonstration versus just going on Amazon to show you. Now, how does this perform? Let's find out. Let's get an Ethernet cable and an HDMI cable. And yes, this thing supports 8K output, which is insane. Let's see, I need a power cable and I need a keyboard and a mouse. And then we can fire this bad boy up and see how it runs. Luke Greenia says you're paying for the name. Yeah, right, the Intel name. Is that worth $100 more to get the Intel name or to get the Thunderbolt? A lot of people, at least in my experience as a computer technician, don't even know what Thunderbolt is, let alone have any Thunderbolt compatible devices. Those are usually specialty type industries, particularly music is where I've personally seen it. Now there is one other difference, and I want to showcase this. This is the power adapter that comes with the Geekom, okay? And then we open up the Intel. I think Intel, by the way, all the same accessories. We'll get into the accessories in a minute. But here's your power adapter for the Intel. Now tell me, which power adapter would you rather have? The big one, that's like laptop size, or the smaller one? Now if we take a look, are they even outputting the same? Output is 19 volts, 3.42 amps, about 65 watts. And this one is 19 volts. This is a 6.32 amp and 120 watts. So this one has twice the capacity for some reason. But look at the size difference. They're both these what we call Mickey Mouse power plugs here on both of these, right? Because when you hold it this way, it kind of looks like the Disney character. And yeah, I'm not quite sure why that's so much more heavy and powerful. And then, of course, as I mentioned, you've got the screws for adding a 2.5-inch drive. You've got the VESA backplate, and they're all pretty much equipped identical in that regard. So let me put this back so I can keep everything straight. It's going to be easy to confuse, except when we're looking at the price. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this down underneath here just to make my life a little easier. All right, put this away for now. Just trying to keep my work area clean so we can go through this. Okay. Let me get this plugged in and we can get things fired up here. I have to step around to get things plugged in, so just bear with me for a minute and we'll have this up and running in just a second. There's our power plug right there. We have plenty of power cable here, unlike some of the other mini PCs where I complained the cable's were only like 4 feet long. This is more of a standard length of cable that you typically would see with a laptop purchase. And then did I turn these on? Yeah, these are turned on. Now we're going to go over to my HDMI input, which means now that camera, you know what, let's get camera one, let's get the close-up camera. How do I want to do this? Let me go back to camera one. I think that's the way to do it. All right, so you're clear. And then I'm going to put myself in a corner like so. And now I'll turn on the HDMI input. There it is. And I'll hit the power button. There's a blue light that comes on the front. And let's see what kind of boot time we're going to get here. Now, as a reminder, I did earlier in the week fire this up, go through all the Windows updates, and ran a few minor tests, quick tests. I didn't do a whole lot with it because I like to keep these reviews authentic as possible so you can see my reaction to things. I mean, that fires right up. You'll see we've got Windows 11 Pro installed. And I've gone through my standard process of configuring and optimizing Windows 11 the same way I always do. There's been nothing special done to this machine. I do recommend whenever you buy a new computer that you always make it your priority. The first thing you want to do with it is hit Windows Update and make sure you get all the updates. And check your version of Windows. Currently is in April of 2023. Windows 10 and Windows 11 are on version 22H2. So if you have any version under that, like 21H2, or if that first number is below 22, you're in need of an update. And if you're not quite sure how to get that, well, you can look through my videos and I explain how you can force those, or just be patient. They will come automatically. If it's not being offered, give it a couple days, and then you can force it after that. They're there to enhance the operating system's security and features and it costs you nothing, but they are big updates and they can take some time. All right, looks like I missed a couple contributions in the chat, so let me take a quick look. Here. Daniel C. with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Daniel. William Rainey with a $10 super chat. Right on. Thank you, William. Now, the question is, will you have better reliability from the Intel unit than from the Geekom unit? Well, let me ask you this. If we open these units up and you see all the parts are identical, if the parts are the same, how can you determine that one would be more reliable than the other? It's very bizarre to me that you could just simply change the name out on something, potentially, and otherwise it's the same, and then be convinced in your mind that one's going to be lasting longer than the other. The question really is what kind of support are you going to get from either company if you need it? So with this unit, I didn't look at what the warranty was, but I can tell you they are hungrier than Intel. In other words, a smaller company is going to be, generally speaking, and with exceptions obviously, but generally speaking, a smaller company is going to appreciate your business more than a bigger company. And they generally show that through lower prices, better support, better warranty. Now, what I like to do in my reviews is I like to hold on to units and actually use them versus just having the first experience and engaging whether or not you should buy it. I fully expect, given that these computers don't really have any moving parts, except the CPU cooling fan, there isn't really anything that's going to wear out unless you have perhaps a power spike or a power issue that would cause an issue with the power supply, or if the power supply itself would be inferior. But we don't have any indication to suggest that at this time. Also, Intel's been around since the 1960s. Geekom, of course, is a younger company. It's 20 years old, but it's by no means a risk in the sense of, hey, this is a brand new company, we don't know if they're going to be around, kind of a risk, right? They've already proven they've got staying power given their 20 years in the industry. So at the end of the day, it's up to you who you want to give your money to. Most people in my business, or in the business I'm in when I deal with consumers, they're always, almost universally focused on the price. And sometimes I have to convince them to spend a little bit more in order to avoid downtime. And when a system goes down or a system's having reliability issues, that means the person is losing money. When we're talking about a business or somebody working from home, if you're not able to get your job done, whatever that computer cost you is going to be adding up more and more as you own it if it proves to be unreliable. Now, given that these parts are nearly identical, as I've already mentioned, I can't see any reason that one would last longer than the other. However, I do fully intend on using the Geekom and putting it in a real world usage scenario and reporting back, in about a year, or if something should happen. In the meantime, what I can tell you is they're reputable, they've been around 2 decades, and they are, in every way that I can tell, identical to the Intel for $100 less. So if you want to spend that $100 more because you want to buy that name, it's your money. I can tell you the vast majority of my customers, if I tell them this appears to be identical except for the price and the Thunderbolt, again, most of my customers don't have Thunderbolt, but they all could use an extra $100. Regardless of how much money they have, they always want that extra money, right? So I would have no problem hesitating this based on what I know about it. However, if I were to deploy this to a customer, I wouldn't deploy it without some feedback from the customer at scale. In other words, I wouldn't deploy it at scale until I had some feedback that everything's going good after a few months. But to buy one and to work with it on a daily basis, to reach out to Geekom if we have any problems and see what their support is like, I don't have any of that information. But given my experience with these mini PCs, I've yet to see a broken one at any scale. I've yet to see a broken one from any manufacturer at any level, at any price point. They've just, if anybody out there watching has a mini PC that doesn't work, please reach out to me at my email address, because I'd very much like to see what's failing on them. I'm going to assume if I don't get any emails from people, and hopefully you'll be willing to part with it and send it to me, and I can fix it for you. I can try, and we can get your PC up and running again. You just have to reach out to me and tell me. Nobody has ever reached out to me for a mini PC repair, and I have never seen a mini PC that requires repair, apart from maybe a cooling fan that makes noise. And I've only seen that once or twice. I think I've seen it twice. It's hard for me to remember because it's like a laptop in a lot of ways. And so sometimes when laptops come in, you know, they come in because the keyboard stopped working, or the Wi-Fi stops working, or they spill something on it, or they drop it, they break the screen, they break the power jack. Because it's a portable machine, it's more prone to damage. Something like this, it's, well, it is portable. You still have to figure out a monitor, a keyboard, a mouse, and maybe some speakers or headphones for it, right? Looking back in the box, I just want to check one thing here. If I get the box open. Let's see. Because I showed you everything that came with the Intel. So here's our short HDMI cable. That's if you want to mount this on the back of your monitor. We've got screws. That's if you want to add a 2.5-inch drive, or you want to screw this to the back of a VESA plate, which is right here. And we have a little instruction manual that demonstrates. You know what? Let me go full screen back on camera one. Here's your manual, which does a great job of just showing pictures rather than some of the English translations we've seen, which can be very confusing on some of the products coming from Asia. In this case, they've avoided that by simply showing pictures with a description of how things go together. And of course, that is double-sided, and it does have multiple languages on the back regarding what appears to be safety and caution information. And that's it. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And that is everything in the box. Now, if we take a look at the specs to see that everything lines up correctly, let me go back over to my HDMI input here. And let's take a look at how things are running. So if I go over to this PC icon and go to properties, we can see that we have the 11th gen Core i7 11390H, 16 gigs of RAM, and of course we don't see our storage here. This is Windows 11 Pro 22H2, and we can check our activation. Hello. Oh, I always hit the wrong keyboard. I always do that. Activation. And it shows activation is active. Okay. Now, let me check. Let me grab my flash drive with my utilities on it. And let's take a look at what we have for performance on the storage drive and what storage drive we've got in there. So we'll pull over Crystal Disk Info and Crystal Disk Mark, which are the two utilities I use for that. These are free downloads. You can just Google them and find them. So Crystal Disk Info tells us what? What will it tell us about the drive? It tells us we've got a Lexar. Oh, it's a name branded Lexar solid state drive. It's the NM620 512 gig drive. We've powered it on, it looks like a total of 31 times, and it's got 5 total hours on it. So that's, part of that's going to be the factory getting it installed and tested. and then probably a good 20 of those are me. But you can see only 5 hours of time is on this drive. Now we'll go over here to Crystal Disk Mark, and let's see what kind of performance numbers we get out of this. Now I do know this is an NVMe drive, and let's see what all the numbers look like on this at this amazing price point. I mean, this thing is snappy. You click on stuff and it responds almost like it was anticipating you were going to click there before you clicked it. It's that quick. Now, of course, you can bog it down with a bunch of stuff if you want to, but I can tell you right out of the box, this thing flies. And it's whisper quiet. So let's take a look at what numbers we're getting. Those, oh, I see what I've done here. I keep doing this. I make this mistake where I leave my flash drive plugged in. I mean, stuff that does. And these are the numbers coming off of my flash drive that I have the utilities on. You see up here it says drive D. Here I thought I was all ready. I'm used to this defaulting to the C drive, and I don't know why lately it's been defaulting to D. Something I'm going to have to look into. But I need to stop this test before I can change anything. So let me click over here on stop. Yeah, see, I'm on drive D. So let's take it over to drive C. That is our NVMe drive. And that's how you know these videos are live and unscripted, because that's an honest error people make all the time, but they don't normally film themselves in front of a live audience when they do it. So let's see what kind of numbers we get. That's much better. That looks like it's Gen 3. Gen 3, you're going to max out about 3,600 on your reads and probably a little over or around 3,000 on the writes. So while that's running, let me go back over here, go back to my camera 1, and let's see if I can put myself a little smaller again so we can see both screens at the same time. Keep that back where it was. There we go. Okay, so while this test is running, let me take a look here in the chat room and see if there's any questions that I can answer for you guys about this device. Let's see, what am I missing? Sarge Tech says those specs ain't nothing to sneeze at. Pretty good. Yeah, I mean, especially compared to some of the other ones I've been looking at the, you know, $200 price point. I mean, here we're going more than 2 times that. However, you're getting about 4 times the amount of computer. Thomas Backenstow saying hello. Oh, some folks are pretty funny in the chat room. Oops. Let's see. Rick Lakes jumps in and says hello. Essential Working Too Hard says hello. Does it come loaded with with bloatware? That's what Sarge Tech wants to know. It's just a standard Windows 11 install. And I've discussed that on previous videos, that what a lot of YouTube channels are calling bloatware on new installs isn't really bloatware at all. They're just links to things like Spotify or Microsoft Office. They're just links. So if you look at the install size, they're like 16K. They're nothing. I still go to add remove. I go to the apps section of the settings, or what we used to call the control panel, and I remove those links because I don't want to look at them. But it's not bloatware in the sense that it's bloating the machine with third-party products that are encouraging you to buy them. There are products from Microsoft that Microsoft wants you to buy, and then partnerships with people like Spotify, and sometimes you'll see eBay in there. Those are just links. That's all they are. So no, there's no actual bloatware. There are a handful of links, 3 or 4. Microsoft's Minecraft education. I don't know how that's educational, but again, it's a very small download. Skype is installed. That's a full install Skype, but that's a free download. I just take it out. Microsoft Teams is usually installed. All the standard stuff that comes on a basic install of Windows 11 Pro. No third-party bloatware, no. But fair question. I think that's kind of a trend that's passed. I don't see many manufacturers doing that anymore. Moorcat wants to know if that's the Windows 10 optimizer. Yeah, it is the Windows 10 optimizer. I've never made a Windows 11 optimizer. It works fine. Mats Olof says hello and joins us from Sweden. Welcome in, Mats Olof. Essential Working Too Hard wants to know where they're made in China. Is it the same company? I don't know. I don't know where Intel's having theirs made. And I don't know that we can tell anything other than the country of origin, just made in China. You know, where the company is headquartered in China doesn't necessarily reflect where they're made. However, I understand you're asking, are they made in the same factory? I don't know. But that really wouldn't matter to me if they were or they weren't. Parts are parts, and whether you assemble them over here in the building on the left or you assemble them over here on the building on the right, you're still putting together the same thing, right? So if you have, for example, car manufacturers, European car manufacturers and Asian car manufacturers manufacture the same cars in the US. And the US auto manufacturers manufacture their cars in the US or for the US in Mexico and Canada when they were previously built here. They're the same car built the same way. Same parts, suppliers, everything's the same. I don't know that whether or not it's made in the same factory, apart from being an interesting trivia question, really pertains to reliability or support. So remember, any product can fail, right? The question is, if a product fails, what kind of support are you going to get from the company? And that's across the board. The most important concern I have as a computer technician is that I have to offer my customers support. So if I recommend this to a customer and the customer has a problem with it, then the customer comes to me. Where am I going to go? I'm going to go back to the manufacturer. If the manufacturer doesn't respond or doesn't respond in a timely manner with a solution to the problem, I risk losing my customer, because the customer doesn't care about any of that. All my customer cares about is they bought a machine from me, and it's my job to support it. So if a manufacturer doesn't get back to me in a timely manner or doesn't offer me a timely solution, then I have a choice to make as a business owner. I can replace or repair the unit at my own expense right away to help the customer and hopefully keep that customer coming back with more purchases. And of course, if I do that, I won't be supplying those parts to any of my customers ever again, because I don't want to go out of business and ruin my reputation. So as I previously mentioned, I would deploy a single unit or two to a company and probably offer it at a discount under the condition that they would be essentially beta testing it for me in a real world application and see how it works over the period of 6 months to a year. And then based on that, even though that particular model of computer likely will be upgraded or replaced by the manufacturer, because we'll be in 14th gen Intel chips by then, at least we have an idea from the manufacturer of what we can expect. And based on the history of the company, personal experience with the company, I can then confidently move forward or away depending on how that trial goes. But for home users, which I'm assuming all of you are watching this, buying one computer once every few years, the question is really about, are you running a home business off of it? if you are, you should always have a backup computer. I'm streaming as a way to add to my revenue. And as a result, I have an expensive streaming computer and a backup streaming computer. And I have a backup studio, which also has a streaming computer and a backup streaming. I have 4 streaming computers. So if anything happens, I have the ability to get back, and you guys would never know anything's changed. And none of the computers are the same. So in that way, I have a variety of different machines to fall back on if one machine proves to be troublesome. Like if there's a motherboard I used that turns out to have a problem, or a solid state drive that turns out, like the Samsung 980, that has a problem with early failure, corrected with a firmware update, but nonetheless, you can understand the situation that would put me in if they were all identical. So when we go with known good hardware, a trusted manufacturer, then I'm a lot more confident that should anything happen, I'm going to get a fast response and my downtime will be minimal. Because again, my business lives or dies based on the kind of support my customers get from me. And hopefully they don't need it. Hopefully, you know, the kinds of questions they have are more like tutoring questions. How do I open up Microsoft Word? Or how do I stop my printer from double-sided printing? These are the kinds of questions I get. And those questions, of course, they're on me. That doesn't go back to a manufacturer, obviously. And, you know, that keeps me busy enough, right? I'm still on the phone offering that support for free to my clients. And sometimes we cross a line between support and tutoring. And sometimes it's faster to just answer and tutor the customer than it is to explain why you can't. But this is not a support question. This is a tutoring question. By the time you get done debating that, you might just piss off your customer anyway, and they'll take their business, future business, somewhere else. So there's all these little scales and weights I have to balance to try and make sure I'm not putting myself out of business with support cost and not leaving my customers feeling they got ripped off. And I can tell you, in the short time I've had to play with this machine, it's virtually indistinguishable from that Intel unit, so far as I can tell. So I would have no problem, no hesitation deploying this as a trial for a client. As a home user, you know, you buy it, you're not going to have the same kind of consequences that a business has. You have far less to risk. However, just because you get a unit from, let's say, Intel, doesn't mean you're going to be without a problem or that you're going to get good support if you need it. You should, and you shouldn't have a problem. And if you do need support, you should get a timely response, but you may not. So people, sometimes they look for like ultimatums. They look for absolutes. And the world very rarely works in absolutes. We kind of work on statistics and what the average experience is. So for example, do any of you in the chat room have experience with Geekom? And if so, how would you describe that experience? Would you buy from them again? Because their name isn't as well known, it's likely none of you have ever purchased a product from this company before. And it's likely this company will try harder and be more appreciative for your business because they're not Intel. That's a theory. But until I hear from people to either verify that or contradict it with their own experience, I see no reason to not give them the benefit of the doubt, given they've been in business for 20 years. And given everything I can tell as a technical person, we're looking at an identical machine with a $100 price difference. And again, whether or not it's got Thunderbolt, I would much rather have the USB 4. That's far more universal. So, but that's just my opinion on it. Let me see if you have any questions for me on this. I'll be happy to address them. Trevor says, I have worked with many PCs. Most problems I get are the SATA drives die and some overheat. With fan problems? Yeah, well, I've only seen 2 bad SSDs in my entire career. So that's pretty unusual, what you're telling me about. But I also have never received a mini PC for repair at all. So we obviously have living in different areas. There's going to be areas where there's more mini PCs or areas where there's more laptops, or maybe just how you've sort of steered your business towards that kind of work. But I would love to see a mini PC come in for repair, and I look forward to the day when that happens. But I appreciate hearing your experience, which is obviously very different from my own. Is the RAM upgradable to 32? Andy wants to know. I believe the RAM is upgradable to 64. Should be 2 sockets in there, and we can put, we should be able to put 2 32s in there. Will it mount on the back of a monitor? That's what Rusty in the chat wants to know. Yes, that's what this plate is for right here. Absolutely. Nick Poverman jumps in and says, hello, happy Passover, happy Easter to those who celebrate either or both. Right on. Back at you, my friend. Tim Teal says, Carrie, I've sold 5 of the Camrui mini PCs, and they've been rock solid so far. I did have one fail with the VGA port not working, and it was really, really warm, so I returned it through Amazon. Yeah, I would imagine, you know, when we're dealing with anything electronic, solid state, usually if it works out of the box, and certainly for the first 30 days, it's probably going to work for years. Unless you have some kind of a power spike, something happens with the power at your house that can damage electronic equipment, which isn't really the failure of the unit, you know what I mean, of the manufacturer. And that can happen depending on what area of the country you live in. Here in Phoenix, electrical storms are pretty popular. It's very dry, arid climate. Obviously, if you live in a more humid environment, static and these kind of things are less likely. But anytime there's a storm, no matter where you live, hopefully you've got a good surge protector. And if you're really cautious, just unplug it entirely from the wall. And don't forget to unplug your Ethernet cable too, because I've seen computers get fried through the network cable, or back in the day, telephone cable into the modem. Telephone system got spiked with power, went in through the modem, spiked the motherboard, spiked the hard drive. All that stuff had to be replaced. Computer was unplugged, but they didn't unplug the communications. So there can be power surges through the communications as well. So anyway, just something to keep in mind. The other thing that I would recommend you do is if you look over at Amazon, in fact, let me go back over there again. Let's take a look at this together. Because again, there's like 2 different kinds of people in the world. There's people that can hear opportunity knocking and be excited to answer the door. And there are people that hear opportunity knocking and they complain about the noise. All right, so for the naysayers, for the people who are going negative on this, I just want to take a look at what the general population on Amazon has said about this. Now you can see we've got 145 ratings at a nearly perfect 5-star score. And let's see what people have to say. I see what I'm doing here. I'm on the wrong screen. Okay, so yeah, here's our ratings right over here. It stops popping up. Let's just click on that and see what it says. Now, if there were no negative reviews, I would be very suspicious, right? Because you always have people on Amazon that have no idea what they're doing. And it's not necessarily the fault of the manufacturer. Sometimes the shipper, the local driver drop kicks the package to their door. But let's just see, what do the 1-star reviews say? Let's go right to those. This person received a defective product. This person doesn't like the support they received. This is back in November. So we have a number of people here. This person says their unit caught fire. That's a little scary, isn't it? But look at the number: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, let's just say it's 10, just to round it up. And let's compare that to the people who really liked it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, obviously, if there's 143 reviews, that means there's 133. If we subtract 10 out of that, or technically it's only 9, 134. It looks like there's only 1 2-star review, and there may only be 1 or 2 3 stars. And if you look at the ratio of the people who are happy with it to the people who aren't, it falls pretty much in line with nearly any electronic product here on Amazon, right? If you just pull up any mini PC in general that has that amount of reviews or greater, that's about right in the average of what you're typically going to find on Amazon. So again, if I didn't see these, and we don't know the situation, the environment that this was plugged into, are they plugging it into a 40-year-old surge protector that's on its last legs? Did their local delivery driver drop kick it to the door? Did they get a bad one? You know, that can happen. Absolutely, that can happen. So overall, you know, you're going to have to make up your mind based on which one of these people do you think you're going to be? Do you think you're going to be one of the majority, the vast majority, who are very happy with the purchase? Or do you think you're going to be down here? And, you know, it's impossible for you to predict this until you have your own experience. And so you can see out of a 5-star review, they're at 4.3, and there's no controlling what anybody can write, right? They have no control over this. And as I mentioned, if I didn't see any critical reviews, I would be very suspicious if the reviews were real. So this satisfies me. Like, this is not enough information for me to not want to try the product and see for myself. I would be concerned about the tech support. That would concern me, and I would want to verify that for myself, right? I don't want to take one person's word for it. It's not... You're not seeing that over and over and over from people. As far as I can tell, you're only hearing it from one person. This person says they can't output to 4 monitors. I thought this computer, or I bought it as a solution. I think this will do, it's got DisplayPort and it's got HDMI, so that's 2. And then you've got the USB-C, that's 3. That's it. Yeah, you should be able to do 3 on this, I think. So, oops. Now this one's showing it's coming with Windows 10 Pro, even though, oh, that's the NUC. Okay, so the Intel NUC is coming with Windows 10 Pro instead of Windows 11. Interesting. I just realized that. All right, let me go back over to the main camera here. Camera 1. And let's go full screen on that. How did I do that? There I am. Okay. Don't mind me as I'm still figuring out OBS apparently. Let me go back to the chat room and see what I'm missing here. Vega Man wants to know if you can plug your speakers into the headphone jack. Yes, you can. You could also get USB speakers, or apparently they make speakers for HDMI, which I'm guessing are like television surround sound speakers, I'm guessing. What are the brands of the RAM and the solid state drive? That's a good question. Let's do this. Let me go back over to the window capture. I want to take another look. That is not the window capture I wanted. There's the window capture I want right there. Okay. As you can see, our numbers on the reads and the writes, let's see, 3447 on the sequential reads, 2640 on the writes. So that is right in line with Gen 3 SSD, and it is made by Lexar. Let's go ahead and turn this off, and we can open it up and take a look at the inside. How about we do that now? Go over here and power. Shut that down. Okay, you see how fast that shut down, right? That thing is quick. Now back over to camera 1. Here we go. Okay, let me get this unplugged. That's my flash drive with the utilities on it. And let's unplug power when we work on it. And we'll go over to the close-up camera, which is right here. All right, come on over. Come on over. And let's open this bad boy up here. See what we got. No rubber feet you have to remove. Thank goodness. We're going to take out that screw there. Oh, and look, the screws are held captive, so you don't have to worry about dropping them or losing them. It's a nice touch. I like it. This arrow indicates when you're going to put this back plate back on, which way it goes on. That's going to point towards the front of the unit. And we should be able to just pull on these feet. I've never opened this up before, so we're going to explore this together. Now be careful we don't yank this ribbon cable out. This is for installing a 2.5-inch drive if you want to expand your storage that way. There's our Lexar branded solid state drive right there. And if you turn this way and you focus right down there, who makes that? What is the M? Is that Mushkin or is that? It says it's a product of Malaysia. Let's have a little fun with this. Let's pop these out of here. Why don't you get a close-up of those with the camera? They can take a quick look. Maybe somebody can identify that for me. You want to see if this will work? I just happen to have this laying around. Should we put it in there and see if it sees all 64 gigs? Yeah. Let's find out. I mean, we can read specs all day, but specs in reality, sometimes they're not the same. I don't know that this is going to work, but I think it should. So here's one. I'm going to put it in the right direction. And we take that screw out. Underneath the Lexar SSD is our Wi-Fi adapter, I believe, which I think is soldered in place. Yeah, I think the Wi-Fi is soldered on the board, which I'm pretty sure is exactly the same on the Intel unit. Okay, so here's 64 gigs. Just like that. Now let's plug it in and turn it on. Also, if you look on the lid here, you'll see there's thermal tape that is going to rest on top of that Lexar SSD to help dissipate heat coming off of it. Just in case you were wondering what that was. And you'll see our captured screws here being held in with a standard C-clip, so you can remove them if you need to. Okay, let me grab that power cable because it fell on the floor. And let's see what this computer will do if it recognizes all 64 gigs. I'm going to leave the lid off of it just to keep things interesting. And we'll turn it on right there. And I'm going to go back over to HDMI input. And hopefully we're going to get a signal here in just a second. I'll tell you what, let me put it on camera 1. Put myself in a corner so you guys don't think we've lost the signal. I'm on HDMI input. Yes. And close-up camera, we'll turn that off for just a moment here. And let's see if we're going to get any life out of this. Yeah, you can turn that one off. Oh, see, now it takes a second because it has to train the new memory we put in it, right? So don't freak out. You'll see how long that took from the time I turn it on. It won't take that long every time. That's true if you're building a new computer. I always tell people, you know, your first boot, give it up to 90 seconds. So now that that's booting, let's take a quick look at, for me, I have to go full screen so I can read it. Full screen. And let's go to right click, properties. And yeah, it sees 64 gigs of RAM. Yep, that appears to be the maximum you can put in there. And it does work. We've just proven that without a doubt. That absolutely works. Okay, very cool. As to who makes this other RAM, oh, ha! You know what? Turn the close-up camera back on for a second. I feel like an idiot. The manufacturer's name is on a label on the back of it. It is branded memory. Let's go back to close-up camera. Let's turn this one off. Come on over here. Look here. I flipped one over. Can you make the camera keep going in that direction? Tilting it toward, tilt it this way. Ah, you got it. Perfect. Actually, I think my hand was helping cover the light. That is crucial memory. See, I was looking at this and I just flipped it over and the name is on the other side. So we have name brand memory and name brand storage. Oh, come on, that's pretty darn cool, especially at this price point. You know, you can go online and see how much this will cost you to buy this separately, and then you can go online and see how much that Lexar drive will cost you separately and subtract it from the price of this unit, and you can really see what a deal this is. Now that Team Force memory that I'm using, just so you know, let me go to Amazon. And the reason I have that, it was an incredible value. Usually it's about $100 for 32 gig. You can stay where you were. You were fine. I'm going to find it. Here it is. All right. I'm just getting the page ready to show you. This is the RAM I'm using right now, and you'll see it's 64 gigs of RAM. It's only $105.99. That's only about $7 more than what a 32 gig kit from other manufacturers would cost you. I don't know how they got it this cheap. That's an incredible value, I think. So yeah, stock up if you can afford it. That's a really good value. I was expecting 64 gigs of RAM to be a lot more money than that. In fact, when I searched it on Amazon here, this one's 117, this is 109, 137, 183. I mean, you know, nobody's that cheap. And I've got experience with Team Group where I've had very good reliability from them. This is another Team Group for the same price here. But yeah, I like the looks of the red one. And that's the one that says it's on sale with the red tag there. No, that's the wrong one, Gary. This is this one right here. That's the one I'm talking about. Okay, let me go back over to... I confuse myself so easily. I keep trying to hit escape to go back to a smaller window, and it's not working because I'm on the streamer instead of on an external computer. So it's confusing me, but bear with me. As I mentioned, these are all live. And let's see. All right, so we're back to the close-up camera. So you're doing your thing, and let me take a look in the chat and see if there's other questions I can answer for people. Nick Poverman said, this little mini PC has a better CPU than my Dell Latitude 5520. It likely has a better CPU than most of the viewers watching this video are using right now, with few exceptions. And it's likely at a cheaper price point than what you paid for your machine. Big Man wants to know, can you run VirtualBox on a higher end mini PC? Say you want Windows and Linux in a VirtualBox. Yeah, I don't see why not. Why not? If I were going to run Linux and Windows separately, then I would run either two different partitions and change the boot in the BIOS. I wouldn't use like a boot menu. But as to a VirtualBox, yeah. You obviously want a lot of RAM for that. You want a powerful CPU for that, or it's going to be slow. But yes, I don't see any reason why that shouldn't work. And work well. Dennis Kine says hello in the chat. Welcome in, Dennis. OG Gaming says, seems like the computers are getting smaller. I won't be surprised that they'll get as small as a thumb drive. Well, we already have what are called PC sticks, right? Mitch and I have done a couple of reviews of the Azul, A-Z-U-L-L-E units that are meant to essentially be an Amazon Fire Stick. And the Fire Stick is just a little miniature computer with a flavor of Linux, customized Linux running on it, optimized for video streaming. And I was having problems with my Fire Stick streaming any 10-bit X265 files. And it turns out Amazon came out with a new Fire Stick Max as of this year. It's a new model. It's like $35 or something. And I thought, I'll try it, because this X265 stuff is driving me crazy. And not only is it more responsive when you're going through the menus with the remote, it's playing all the 10-bit files perfectly now. So it's much more powerful for streaming only, right? Or maybe there's a web browser. It's painful to use a web browser without a keyboard. But be that as it may, they're already that small. And yes, I imagine you're right. They're going to continue getting smaller and smaller. But more important than the size is the value to me, and also reliability. Like I said,
battery.
You're running low on battery? Where you at?
Looks like about 20%.
20%, you're fine. All right, go ahead and let me go back to camera one. There, wait a minute. Camera one, there I am. Now you can shut that one off, because we still might need it for a couple minutes moving forward. So we'll save that battery for now. Okay, I just want to go back to the chat, see if anybody has any other questions or concerns. Easy Otter wants to know when the sale will end. I don't know the answer to that question. I know they wanted this video posted no later than Easter. So that's this Sunday the 9th. I'm not sure if the sale extends beyond Easter. You could email them. The contact information is on the website, and ask them directly. I don't know. I'm scrolling up to see if I've missed any other questions from earlier. And of course, if you've got a question, well, you've got my attention here in the chat. This is a good time to repost your question, because if I haven't addressed it, it's because I have not seen it. And some of the older comments, they flow off the top of the screen and I can't get them. Will these units become the new office computers? Brent wants to know. That's up to the person who runs the business, right? It's their decision. I can't see why not, unless they have special needs. Alan Lindos contributes in Super Chat $7.77. Alan says, hey, Carrie, Mara, and chat. Late again. Here's my late fee. Sorry. Thank you, Alan. Appreciate you. John in the chat wants to know, I don't know if I missed you talking about it, but are there cooling fans that one might need to clean out someday? Do these machines have coin batteries for the BIOS? Yes and yes. These machines, because they're not as big as a desktop computer, clearly they're not going to gather as much dust. I know because I live in the desert, which is a very dusty environment. And I can tell you the mini PC experience of the initial mini PC I did of the Nook from 2013 got far less dusty. I only needed to clean it out once every couple of years versus twice a year on my desktops. It has a CPU cooling fan, and the CPU cooling fan is at the top of the machine. You notice we opened it from the bottom, and you don't see the cooling fan. The CPU is on the other side with the fan on the other side. And you can blow air through the vents. You don't have to open this up. You can just simply blow air through the vents with something like this. And it'll get all the dust out. You don't need to physically open them to clean them, and they're very, very easy to clean. Now, if you're a smoker and you're getting the kind of tarry, sticky dust that requires a manual wipe out, wiping it out with like a paper towel or Q-tips or anything else, that's a far more complicated and time-consuming task of any electronic items, and in some cases is not able to be removed without potentially damaging the unit by soaking it in an ultrasonic cleaner. And again, when you do that, most cases they're going to be okay, but sometimes they don't survive that. So I would avoid smoking around any electronics devices for that reason. Vaping's fine, but smoking's bad. I'm not talking about you personally. I'm not talking about your health. I'm talking about the health of electronics. Vaping doesn't hurt them. Smoking absolutely does. But other than that, the dust should just blow out real easy. Fair question, and that's true of all mini PCs. They will all have a CPU fan, and that'll be the only fan in most cases they will have. Some units, depending on the manufacturer, could have more than one, but those are exceptions. They're not the norm. Let's see what else we've got. Come on, guys, fire up some questions here for me. Mike Yazzie jumps in the chat, says hello. Welcome in, Mike. William Lynn wants to know, do you still have a portable screen that you can share with us how it works? You know what, William? That's a great idea. I do. I keep it right back here. This is a portable monitor, and I've reviewed this in a previous video, so we're not going to review it. I'm just going to simply demonstrate an example of how you could use this portable screen along with a portable keyboard and mouse and the Wi-Fi connection to effectively have a portable computer. So in this other box here, we've got a USB-C cable, and this USB-C cable is going to provide power and a video signal all on this one USB-C cable. And so the way we're going to set this up is there's a metal stand back here that I'll pull out, and we'll set it right like so. This is USB-C, and this needs to go on, I always forget which side. It's only one acceptable side. It's going to go on this side over here. So instead of wrapping the cable around, let me just bring this around. Right, so here's our monitor. Let's move this stuff out of the way. I don't want to knock it over. Put the monitor here. And I believe we have to go to this side, right about there. Now we can use a mini HDMI cable and a power adapter as well, but isn't this more convenient if we could just plug this in to this USB down here And now you see the monitor's got power from that USB-C cable. And we likely have to, I'm going to guess, go into the Windows configuration and tell it if we want to have dual monitors. Or maybe I can just unplug this monitor. What'll happen if I unplug that capture card? Will it auto-sense that's the only monitor we have? That's what I'm kind of curious about. Or do I have to tell it? Let me plug it in again and let it redetect. See what happens. So it's saying it's not getting a signal. So the only other thing I would do, again, I can go into Windows and I can turn this monitor on, or I likely could just boot from this monitor. So let me hit the power button, which is over here. There is a blue light that blinks showing hard drive activity on the front of the unit that's not facing you. And now the unit is turned off. I've just tapped the power button. That's the same as going through a shutdown cycle on Windows with your mouse. Now let me turn it on with only this monitor attached and see if it auto-detects that. I'm curious. Shows Type C, shows Geekom. It did auto-detect it at boot up. How easy is that? There it is. Come on now. Come on. That's crazy cool, especially when you combine the price of that screen with that. It's only adding $100. And you could probably get one cheaper than that if you really wanted to. And I'm not here to promote this, and I'm not here to promote other things. I'm here specifically as a dedicated video on this Geekom PC because I think it stands alone in its value for performance in a unique way that none of the other mini PCs I've reviewed to this point, they've come close, but this one is sort of leading the pack from best I can tell. Now we can do better than this, we can go higher than this, but we also need to spend more money. So where this Geekom fits in the family of mini PCs for the value, I think deserves a video of attention, and that's my intent today. Because this whole industry changes so quickly. What can be of value today suddenly may not be in 6 months. So everything is kind of the moment as the industry is shifting, and the leaders will move back and forth. You know, sometimes when we look at pre-built machines like HP and Dell, so 1 quarter HP sells more, 1 quarter Dell. So it just keeps shifting. Or who's the richest person in the world? And one day it's Elon Musk, and one day it's, you know, I don't know, Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or Jeff Bezos or Richard Branson. I don't know. It goes back and forth. Nobody really stays up for a very long period of time. And much the same way, and far more volatile is the industry that we're in, with RAM prices and SSD prices are really been plummeting lately. And the economy, given inflation and the state of the economy right now, manufacturers might be a bit more aggressive in their pricing structure as a response to that, to sort of increase sales. But I'm speculating. I really don't know how decisions are being made, but I can tell you as a tech, for what you're getting for the money, I'm not aware of another that competes with this in what you're getting for space, storage, and processor for that price. Icarus wants to know how the Fire Stick Max compares to the NVIDIA Shield. I don't use the NVIDIA Shield. How much is an NVIDIA Shield? Like $200? Is it fair to compare a $35 item to a $200 item? Is that really, are you asking me to make that comparison? Mike Yazzie contributes $20 in Super Chat and says, Carrie, the resize bar issue is fixed, and now my Intel GPU works. Right on. Love to hear more about that. Maybe you can email me with what that was all about. The whole resize bar command for the GPU, I've never messed with it because I haven't gamed on anything since that became a thing. So Mike had emailed me and asked me how to resolve that. And I'm like, I have no idea. But glad you got it resolved. And ultimately, we were able to get his machine back up and running with a with a BIOS reset. And I just told him leave it off, you know, and to contact support or something like that. They could tell him. So apparently he's got it all figured out, and I'd love to learn from his experience. So hopefully he'll share the story with me on what the resolution was. What size is this monitor? That's a 15-inch monitor. They also make them. They also make these in 17 inch as well. It's a little bit bigger. Depends how much you want to carry around with you. William Lynn says, like a portable laptop, why would I buy the mini PC with the portable screen versus a laptop? Well, you know, here's the thing, William. It's like you're looking at something you don't understand and you're asking, why would I be interested in something I don't understand? Well, because you don't understand it. You're not interested in it. Not only that, even if you did understand it, it doesn't mean that you will have that need or that desire to achieve that. But that doesn't mean somebody else won't. I'm sure there's 1,000 different reasons why somebody would want that over a laptop. However, I have said the same thing. Like I have said, if I'm going to have a portable computer, why don't I just take the laptop where the keyboard, the mouse, the speakers, the battery, it's all built in. It's all much more convenient. But there are very specific reasons that people would prefer this, not only because...
Price.
Well...
That is less than what a good laptop is.
Well, okay, price. I suppose if you were to spec out a laptop with all of these specifications, with that size of a screen, you're probably going to spend $300 more. But on the other hand, if you've got to buy a keyboard and a mouse and you've got to buy a screen, it just, to me, it's not so much about the price as it is about the ability to, how much desk space is it going to take up, right? Some people might have very little desk space where the laptop opening up this wide with the keyboard and everything, maybe they want the keyboard and the mouse over here and the screen over to their left, and then they can have the unit back. There's a number of reasons why people would use these. Now, if you don't have any of those reasons, please don't negate or disrespect those who do. So I understand you would have no need for it. I would have no need to make this portable. If I were going to use this, I would use this as a desktop replacement, not as a laptop replacement. But for various reasons, including the number of ports, a lot of modern laptops don't give you the HDMI ports. They don't give you the Ethernet port. They don't give you as many USB ports. Those ports are going away. If you look at the latest Dell XPS line, you're getting 3 USB Type-Cs, nothing else. Nothing else. You've got to plug a dock in, essentially, to break out your HDMI, to break out your USB and Thunderbolt, to break out your, I think there's an SD card reader, but the laptop, for some reason, they're keeping that, and this has that as well. So once again, how people use computers is beautiful. It's sort of like saying, why would anybody, buy that clothes, buy those clothes? Well, they may not be clothes you wear. They may not be clothes that would be comfortable in the area you live in, and they don't fit your needs. It doesn't negate the desire or the need for those articles of clothing to other people. So, yeah. I had a number of examples, which are not coming to mind right now, of where these units would be useful in being portable. And my mind has gone blank, so... Because I had this thought. I thought, well, what are some examples of that? But all I can tell you is when I looked them up, I was like, yeah, that doesn't apply to me, and that doesn't apply to me. So it wasn't like knowing changed any desire for me to want to make it portable or use it in a portable way. But for those who do, the option is there, and that's what's important.
Well, both of those together probably weigh less than a laptop as well.
You think they'll weigh less?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about that. Is the portable screen a touchpad? This one is not. I don't know if they make them. I hate touch screens. I absolutely hate them. So if it was touch, I would have returned it. Nick Pover mentions these would make great point of sale machines. Anything that gets the computer out of the way in hospitals, in businesses, point of sale machines where there's typically a very small counter. Agreed, yeah. Patrick says he has a portable touchscreen monitor. So apparently they do make these in touchscreen. I hate touchscreens, so I wouldn't buy one. Can you make the taskbar buttons bigger for older clients? That's all Windows configuration, yes. Windows always has accessibility options for high contrast screens, screen reading, ease of use for disabilities, and that's one of them for sure. And every version of Windows that I'm aware of has always had, it's called accessibility options. It has nothing to do with the computer or the monitor. Roy Starman said, I bought one for my hobby, and I also mean for it to replace my non-upgradable laptop. Oh, this is a lot easier to upgrade than a laptop. That's a good point. In astrophotography, once everything is set up, you don't need the screen. Well, that's a very, very unique usage scenario. But I like that you mentioned about the upgradability of the laptop or non-upgradability. More and more laptops are having the RAM soldered onto the board. And for most people, they're not going to upgrade anyway. Most consumers do not upgrade their computers, whether they're desktops or laptops. They use them until they don't work or they get so old that they're too slow and they buy new ones. It's really the people that are watching YouTube and participating in videos like this. You're the crowd that's likely to do that, and you don't represent the majority. Now, of course, I do upgrades on laptops and desktops, but I don't do them often. And I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I can tell you, it's just not common. When it was common was during 1999, and we were getting ready for Y2K. That was the year of the upgrade. After that, never saw anything like that again. And I'm not sad about it. But what's nice about this unit is you can obviously get in there and you can change your SSD out, you can change your RAM out. If it had a second M.2 slot so you could have two NVMe's, that would be nice. But it doesn't have that. So I suppose if I had a complaint, the Wi-Fi is soldered on as well. But of course, if we wanted to upgrade the Wi-Fi, we could just buy a USB Wi-Fi adapter to Wi-Fi 10 or whatever in a few years, whenever that happens, if that was something we even needed. We've got plenty of USB ports on here, so it's not a deal killer. And we can add external storage to it the same way. We can put an external storage drive via USB, and it would be fast with that USB 4. So it kind of makes up for it because it's a storage drive anyway. You only need one boot drive. So they're very minor issues. And at this price, it's really hard to be critical of that because most people won't use those anyway. Like I said, whatever Wi-Fi they've got is likely what they'll use for the life of the unit, and whatever storage they have, most consumers will use for the life of the unit. Kevin Dara contributes $5 in Super Chat. Kevin says, hey, Kerry, sent you my late fee via Amazon, my entrance fee via YouTube. Enjoy your weekend when you get to it. Well, right on. Well, thank you so much from Kevin Dara. And I don't know if I said it earlier, but a shout out to our friend Mark Gaines, who watches us in the UK. Mark had sent an Amazon gift card. Mark's been very generous and supportive of the channel, and I just want to give him a special shout out and a thank you for his continued support. It's bothering me because I can't remember if I said it earlier. Let's see, what do we see in the chat? Brian says, wouldn't a portable touchscreen monitor be a tablet PC? Only if the computer was operated off batteries and attached to the back of the screen, because a tablet is something you can walk around with batteries. This does not have batteries. Otherwise, you're close. But that would you're defining a touchscreen that could be on a laptop. You're defining a touchscreen that could be on any desktop as all being tablets, but that's not what a tablet is. Typically, a tablet does not have a keyboard or a mouse, and it does have a battery. Just so you know. Super Cool 98 Lawrence says, I love the mini PCs. Being able to use it at home and then take it on a trip. If you're at a hotel, you can hook it right up to the hotel TV. That's true. In some cases, it's much easier to haul this with the power adapter and a keyboard and a mouse and an HDMI cable and just run this right to the back of the hotel TV. You don't even need to bring a monitor. Yeah. It's a good point. Brian says, thank you for the distinction, Carrie, about tablets, what defines a tablet. You're welcome, Brian. I appreciate your question. And let's see, what other questions have I missed here? The team says, instead of having a big box sitting on the floor that you could kick by accident, you could have something like this sitting on your desk out of the way. Yes, well, most IT techs will cringe when you say your computer's on the floor. The computer really should be up on a desk. That being said, most all of my business clients, not all of them, but most of them, do keep their mid-towers on the floor, and they run their chairs into them constantly with the wheels on the chairs. Having it on the desk keeps them much freer of dust, but because they're so big, they get in the way for those clients. So the mini PCs are definitely beneficial to the workplace in that people usually have paperwork, the thing they're getting paid to do, the work they're on, spread out across their desk. The last thing they want is to hog up any precious desk real estate with some big box that could sit on the floor. They don't need it up there. On the other hand, I have some business clients that are constantly plugging in USB flash drives, or they need to read memory cards, or they need to read CDs or DVDs. And for them, having the computer down, a mid-sized tower down at the knee level, they can kind of reach down and easily plug that in. But this could work equally as well without, banging their knee into the computer, which they often do. And you'll see the marks over time of the damage to the side of the computer. It doesn't hurt the computer, it just hurts the way it looks. Would you mind checking the door for me? All right, the phone beeping is they're motion sensors around the studio. And so anytime you hear that phone going off, it means somebody's walking around here. And usually it infers there's a delivery. And I'm expecting some deliveries today. So sorry for the distraction there, but I don't like having packages outside for obvious reasons. Okay, can you check with CPU-Z? That's what Wintermeat wants to know. Seeking a conflict between choices at the top of the Geekom page and tech specs at the bottom. The 11390H is not listed as an option in specs. Interesting. Did I write it? Is it my mistake? Let me take a quick look. Let me grab my utilities. And I gotta step around over here. We'll plug that in right there. And let's see. I need this keyboard. I need to go back to the capture card or you guys won't be able to see anything. So let's plug HDMI back in right here. Let me turn the unit off. get this out of the way. I don't want to confuse you guys. More importantly, I don't want to confuse myself. Now, when I turn this on, it should auto-detect the HDMI is the one plugged in. And we'll go over to my OBS software, and we're going to capture the HDMI input right there. And I'll take my camera, put me in the corner up here like I normally do. Here we go. And I need to go full screen so I can see what you guys are seeing. There it is. Oops, didn't mean to hit that. Go over here. Go over here. Go over here. CPU Z, drag that out. Double clicky. Double click. Close, close. All right, let's see what we got here. Even that's too small for me to read. This is an Intel Core i7-11390H. So, okay, I didn't screw that up. You'll see that thing cranks up to what, 5 gigahertz? Are we seeing 5 out of that thing? That's crazy. Yeah, there's the 11390H. Watching that speed dance around. The processor speeds up and slows down depending on what processes and tasks it has to do in the background. That way it's not consuming more power if it doesn't need to just idle. All of the modern Intel Core processors do that, as do the AMD Ryzens. It's a really smart design. Keeps power consumption and the heat low, and that also means the fans are going to run quieter. And when you're really cranking out some difficult workloads on the machine, that they will cause the fans to ramp up, and you know when things working because you'll hear them. They're not that loud when they crank up, not compared to the old days, but you definitely can notice when you're causing it to work. But interesting that you're not seeing that configuration on their site. It's certainly listed on Amazon that way. Kevin Dara has provided a link to Geekom PC, and that link is to what? This is the link for, let's see, let's go to the window capture again. Mini IT 11, 11th gen. Looks like they sell it as a Core i7 or a Core i5. This shows it's an 11th gen USB 4, Bluetooth 5.2, Wi-Fi 6. I failed to mention the versions of the Wi-Fi. You get $10 off your first order if you sign up. It's a pretty common offer. If you get the 32 gig and 2 terabyte, you can get an additional $50 off. That's a pretty good savings. And then here's our different configurations right down here. That's 32. This looks like the one we're using right here, if I'm not mistaken. This is the i7-11390H with 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gig SSD at $549 with free shipping from the US warehouse. Ships in 1 to 2 business days, delivers in 2 to 5 business days, and taxes included. Oh, yeah, you're going to pay tax if you get this on Amazon, likely if you're in one of the states. The vast majority of the United States charge sales tax. So in Arizona, that's approximately 10%. Let's just say you're going to add another $50 onto this in sales tax here in Arizona. So that's a significant savings with sales tax included. And you can pay with PayPal. I like that because of the security I get from PayPal. Wow, I should have looked at this earlier. Let's see what else they've got on this page I've been missing out on. Oh, it tells us the brand name of the memory right there. Yeah, you don't even hear this thing running, do you? Yeah, it does hit 5 gigahertz. That's crazy. 4 cores with 8 threads at a max 5 gigahertz and 12 gigs of cache on the chip. Come on now. Then of course you can see the comparison if you're going for the cheaper, less powerful i5 versus the more powerful i7, and you can determine if it's worth more to you to save a few bucks and get the mid-range, or if you want to spend a little bit more and have a computer that potentially can last you a bit longer. If you're somebody who replaces your computer every 3 years, the i5 is probably fine. If you want to keep this for 8 years, you probably want the i7. You do show that you can game on it, but obviously there are going to be games you're going to be playing at 1080 and games where you're going to be turning the settings down, but these are games they've tested on it. The advertised read and write speeds, look, we actually achieved better read and write speeds on this than what they're promoting, which is good. I don't like it when companies exaggerate. Mini IT supports dual channel up to 64 gigs as well as up to 2 terabytes. I bet you we could put a 4 terabyte in there and it would work on the M.2. I would bet you that will work. But that's what they're claiming. Let's click on that egg. What do we get? Anyone who spends more than $3.99 will receive a free gift. Simply choose from the list below, copy the code, and enter it at checkout. So we got a hub. We've got, appears to be some kind of a carrying bag. Speaking of portability, there you go. There's a keyboard and a mouse, or is it just a keyboard? Looks like a keyboard and mouse there. And this looks like more RAM. Interesting. Here, get an extra 10 bucks off. Yeah, that brings that window back up. What does that say? Up to $240 off on the Easter time. So click on the egg and see what yours says. This is a very thorough webpage. They really did a good job with this. Multiple 8K ultra high definition displays. Now here they are showing 4 monitors connected to it, even though that person on Amazon complained they couldn't get a 4th monitor working. Or is that a 4th? Does it show 4? Oh yeah, 1 mini display port, 1 HDMI, and 1 each. I thought you could only do 1, but you can do 1 each on the USB 4s. You can get 4 monitors simultaneously on this. The person at Amazon that left that negative review just didn't know what they were doing. There's about the Bluetooth. My mouse isn't scrolling properly. I apologize for the way the screen's moving. That's on my side. You'll see that's where the fan is at the bottom. It's bringing air in from the bottom of the unit and blowing it out the left and right sides. So if you were going to blow this out, you'd want to have the unit off, and you would blow air up through the bottom, and you would blow air in through the sides, each side, and that should clean all your dust out of it on a regular basis. I'd say once a year is a good practice. Here's all your ports. The USB Type A is a 3.2 Gen 2 port. Those USB Type Cs are the USB 4 ports. Once again, a USB 3.2 and speaker / headset goes there. That's your Kensington lock there. These are all the tests they've done with it. You don't even see the computer, do you? Because it's behind the monitor. There's your size and dimensions of the unit. It is a gigabit, not a 2.5. It's a regular gigabit Ethernet. I was curious about that. It does have the SD card reader. Let's not forget that. And then, of course, they've got some reviews out here from customers who have left all 5-star reviews. And then we're at the bottom of the page. That is a very thorough page. But yes, there it is. It is absolutely on the site. So thank you for posting that link. And that link should be in the video notes below this video. That should take you there, just to that very site we were looking at. If it's not, let me know and I can make that correction. But I do believe it is. All right, let me go back over to the chat room. Chris Garrett says you can get it with Windows 10 or Windows 11 if you get the bare bones unit. Well, the bare bones unit essentially doesn't come with an operating system, Chris. That means you're going to provide your own storage and you're going to provide your own operating system. So it's not including either one. It's telling you that when you put your own storage in it, it's on you to provide your own operating system at your cost. And the system is compatible with Windows 10 or Windows 11. It's not included. William says he clicked on the Easter egg and they're offering him the 16 gigs of RAM as a free gift if you order the unit. Yeah. William wants to know, is the RAM 16 gig you get at 2 times 8 gig? I don't know. You'd have to reach out to them. Likely you get what's in the picture. So if they're showing one RAM module, it's likely a 16 gig RAM module. But I would imagine what you see in the photo is what you're going to get. Usually that's how that works. But I could be wrong. You'd have to, these kind of questions, you have to direct it to them. I don't know the answer to that. Ron wants to know, does this one have a 1 terabyte NVMe? It's an option. You can order it that way. You get 32 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte NVMe, which is what I thought I was sent. I was going off of memory and I should have looked. I was sent the 16 gig with 512, so I have to fix the title on the video. So when people are watching this later, that'll already be fixed. And I'm actually glad that they sent me the 16 gig with 512 because that's more than likely the one that'll get ordered most often. Like I'm certain, based on my experience in the industry, the vast majority of you who order one of these are likely going to get it with 16 gigs and 512. Some of you will get the 32 gigs and 1 terabyte, but most of you who order likely will not. So I would much prefer to have what the majority of people would likely buy than to have the high-end one and the vast majority of people buying, a model down below. So in this case, it's a mistake I made, and I'm glad that they didn't send me the higher end one so that the vast majority of you can actually see up close and in person the unit you'd be most likely to buy. Okay, any other further questions? We're just getting on close to about 2 hours here in the broadcast. I like to keep these around 2 hours, but of course I will stick around as long as you guys have questions. I'll stick around. Otherwise, we'll start looking to wrap things up here. William still seems hung up on his RAM question. Again, I wouldn't speculate, William. I would contact them and ask them for clarity. If that's important to you, I would absolutely contact them for clarity. Linda Hudson wants to know, do you keep the little mini computer on all the time like other computers? I wouldn't. And the reason I wouldn't is because anytime you have a very small, portable, it doesn't even have to be portable, just a small electronic device that can generate heat, it's always going to be, potentially having that CPU fan spinning, then you're going to be bringing in unwanted dust. And well, the heat really shouldn't be a problem on a machine that's idle. It would depend on the circumstance. So for example, if this was a home user, like let's say you're at home, you're going to buy this for home use, I would leave it on during the day, and when I'm ready to go to bed, I would shut it off at night. I wouldn't turn it off and on throughout the day. Once it's on, I'd leave it on for the day. When I'm done for the day, I would shut it off. If this was going to a business and I was the managed service provider of that business, I would require these machines to stay on so that I could do remote maintenance on them late at night and on weekends without having to drive to the company. But in that case, if anything were to happen to the units as a result of being left on, it's my responsibility to fix it as the managed service provider. In general, I find machines last or be more reliable when they're left on. We never turn off our phones. We never turn off our refrigerators. How often do these things break, right? However, with power settings enabled on this, right, making sure that after a certain amount of activity, it goes to sleep, the power consumption would be very minimal, but you'd still want to reboot this once a week just to clear out your RAM and sort of refresh everything in the system memory to prevent system crashes from, every program's got memory leaks, and every time you open a program and then close it, it always leaves a little dangling bits in the RAM that over time consume all your RAM, and then your system runs out of memory. So I would reboot it once a week if I were going to leave it on. At the end of the day, whether or not you choose to leave it on or turn it off, it's 6 of one and half dozen of the other in most cases. For me personally, if it was home use, turn it on when I'm using it, and when I'm done for the day, there's no possibility I'm coming back, I am done, then I'll shut it off. What I wouldn't want to do is turn it on and then turn it off, go have lunch, come back from lunch, turn it back on, work on it for a while, turn it off, go have dinner, watch a little TV, turn it back on, mess around on the internet, and then turn it off and go to bed. Flipping it on and off throughout the day, not good. Turn it on once, turn it off once per day. I think that's fine. And of course, you can turn it on and off as many times as you want. But in order to avoid unnecessary wear and tear, both on the power button, as well as on the flexing that occurs when things contract when they're cooler and expand when they're hotter, we want to reduce that and try and keep it one stable temperature as much as possible and not hit the extremes. So the more often you hit those extremes, the more likely a problem is going to build up over time. That being said, what you choose to do, whatever more convenient, if you just want to leave it on and have it go to sleep or have it hibernate or turn the monitor off, it's probably going to be just fine. These things boot up in seconds, so it's not like you're waiting for a long time for it to boot. that was something people used to go grab a cup of coffee while they're waiting for their computer to boot up. Not so these days. So I don't think it really matters. It's really up to you. John Wilson wants to know if I have any updates on the house at Studio B. I'm still waiting. It's kind of like a tennis match. You know, they hit the ball into my side of the court. I hit the ball back to their side of the court. And until they hit the ball back over to my side, there's nothing for me to do but wait. So, yeah, that's where we're at. Jason Wyrick says hello. Welcome in, Jason. Tim Teal says, thank you for all your help and knowledge. Keep up the great videos. Thank you, Tim. Thanks for being a part of this amazing community here. You guys are fantastic. William Dawson says, sometimes my system stays on 3 days at a time with no problems. William, my managed servicing, the customers that I do managed service for, leave their computers on 24/7 for years. But I do request they reboot them Monday morning when they show up to work. I request they reboot the computers every Monday. Just restart them. Jeff H. says, hello, Carrie. Hope your day is going well. Thank you, Jeff. It is, and I hope yours is as well. Planet Cryo says, install a 4 terabyte NVMe and see if it works. I don't have time for that. Do I even have a 4 terabyte? I'd have to clone the OS over. And so, yeah, we'd be here at least another hour. I'm sure it's going to work. I can't imagine why it wouldn't. The 4 terabyte drive costs about as much as the whole computer, so it seems unlikely anybody's going to do that anyway. And of course, you can get a much bigger mechanical drive for a fraction of the cost and plug it into a USB port. Why wouldn't you just do that? Rick Lake says, I have my mini PC on, although from what I just heard, I might turn it off just before I go to bed. It's really up to you, Rick. It probably doesn't make much difference one way or the other on these mini PCs. In general, because of how small they are, because of the limited amount of airflow they have, I personally am a little uncomfortable leaving them on the same as I would for a laptop. I don't like leaving laptops on overnight. You can, but night after night after night after night after night, I just don't know what the dust buildup, how that's going to relate to heat performance issues. However, depends on your environment, right? I'm in a very dusty environment and it's very dry. More humid environment, probably be a little less worried. However, and I want to emphasize, if this were a business, the business would leave these on. They'd have to, because I need to remote in and do the work. So it's likely fine one way or the other. Most PC problems happen when somebody's turning the computer on. So if we avoid having to, and I'm not talking about restarting the computer, I'm talking about turning it on after it's been off for a few hours. If you're going to have a problem, more than likely that's when it's going to happen. On desktop computers. On these little mini PCs, they just haven't been around long enough for me to establish the same level of experience with them in that regard. I will tell you that I've had 2 Intel NUCs at one of my clients that I'm an MSP on, and those are left on 24/7, no different than all the desktops in the office. And when you're logging in remotely to work on them, you can't tell the difference. And they've only been there 6 to 12 months, maybe a year, somewhere between 6 months and a year. And we've not yet had a problem. One of them might have been there a year and a half now, that I think about it. So I'm relatively certain they're okay to leave on. I really don't think it's going to make much difference. But I have to have them on to remote in. I have to. So it doesn't really matter. Even if it was bad to leave it on, I'd be doing it anyway, because I have to do remote maintenance after work hours, so I don't interfere with their business. And that includes weekends, so they have to just leave them on. Jason says he ordered an Ace Magician. It just came in the mail today. I'm trusting you. Well, hopefully you've ordered it somewhere where you have peace of mind that you can return it if you don't like it. At the end of the day, what you like and what I like may not be the same things. So I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are of any mini PC if you happen to have one, regardless of brand. Would you buy it again? Would you recommend it? Because at the end of the day, it's not about the professional technician's opinion. It's about the actual end user's experience. End users have so much anxiety and so much worry, and they're so afraid in many cases that until you can convince them to actually try it, there's no way to really know if they're going to like it or not. One person's trash is another person's treasure. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what somebody else's values are. What matters is what your values are. And if you think it's something you're going to like, or you just want to have the experience, make sure you buy from a place that takes returns easily, and you have that peace of mind knowing that you can always return it, you know. And then let me know, good or bad. Was it a good experience? Was it a bad experience? What were your fears? Were they justified? I'd love to hear from the audience on that. Zvi says, I don't trust my clients to restart every now and then, so I created a task schedule to restart the computer every day in the late evening. I think every day is a bit aggressive. I think once a week is more than enough. And sure, we could schedule the task. Basically, I let this problem solve itself. When I first suggested it, they didn't listen. So they'd call me after about 2 to 3 weeks of leaving the computer on without a restart and say, my computer just crashed. I said, well, have you tried shutting it off and turning it back on again? Oh, should I do that? You should always do that for any problem before you call me. Only because I don't mind that you're calling me, but you could already be up and running and back to work in the amount of time we've had this discussion and avoided calling altogether. So always, always turn it off and back on again. So after about 3 months of this, coming from various employees at this company, they all figured out that after about 2 to 3 weeks, the machine will start to crash because they haven't restarted. And so I just kept gently reminding them, I highly recommend you restart these computers first thing when you get in on Monday. Just hit the restart, they boot in seconds, it's not a big deal, and you'll be good for the week. Instead of trying to keep track of every 2 weeks. Did I do it last week? I can't just do it every week. But doing it every night, I think, is excessive. And of course, once a month when the Windows updates automatically download and install, that will also restart the computers midweek, Tuesdays or Wednesdays, sometimes Thursdays, late at night when they're not in the office. They don't even know it happens. All right, guys, any other questions for me, or should we wrap this up for today? Let me shout out a thanks to the folks over at Mediums and the folks over at Geekom. Geekom has sent the unit to me for review. They are not paying me to review it. And in fact, I spent quite a lot of money to buy that Intel unit because I couldn't believe how similar they were, and I wanted to show you. Like I said, I could have just pointed to the Amazon page, but I thought it would be far more effective if you could see it in my hands. And if we open the Intel unit up, it's exactly the same. Different brand of memory and stuff, but it's exactly the same layout. I find that amazing. And $100 is a massive price difference. And that's the main reason is I'm trying to provide to you the information I would want if I were watching this video. The whole market, this mini PC market, is moving very, very quickly. And there's a lot of players jumping in who are pretty foreign to us here in America, but have been around in Asia for, 10 plus years. Geekom is 20 years. I never heard of Geekom until this year. But clearly they've been popular in other areas of the world. And now I've got FOMO, or fear of missing out. And I'm like, what else do I not know? This looks pretty impressive. What do you think? You can let me know in the comments if you have questions or concerns. I'll do my best to provide answers, although it's fairly new to me as well. But I'm telling you right now, this looks and acts like the Intel all day long at a significant price difference. So I don't know what else to say. Decide for yourself. William Lynn wants to know if I still have Studio C as an option. That depends what happens at Studio B. Studio C is, there is no Studio C. So it can't be an option if it doesn't exist. But if Studio B comes to an end, I have little choice, don't I? So then there'll have to be a Studio C, and I will have to locate one and find the money and move everything. And I'm not looking forward to that, but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen. Bike Man says, I typically restart my Android phone and my gaming desktop the same morning, typically Sunday mornings once a week. I never reboot my Android phone. It gets an update once a month, a big Android update, and that's when it restarts. So I think once a month is fine for me. If I'm having problems, and I haven't had this S23 long enough yet, but if it starts having problems, I'll reboot it, just as I advise my customers, restart it and see if it fixes the problem. But with the S23, it just came out in February. The only time it's been restarted has been with the Android updates that have come through. OG Gaming wants to know, what was your first PC that you worked on? The first PC I worked on was a TRS-80 Model 1 in 1980. But if we're talking about a Windows compatible PC, it was the 28612 that I bought. That was the first Windows compatible PC, or IBM compatible PC. It cost me $1,200. It was a 28612 with a 40 megabyte hard drive, IDE hard drive, with a floppy drive, 4 megs of memory. I think it was 4 megs. And of course you had 640K, and then you had to use like EMM 386 to get the expanded or extended memory access. It had a dial-up modem because there was no internet back then. Dial up into BBSs. You can hear how I got started. I have a whole video on this in my library. Just look up how I got started. Brent says, hopefully you'll come to Michigan. I go to Michigan every fall, and as far as I know, I'll be back in Michigan this fall again for vacation. That's my home state. That's where I feel most comfortable, and I miss it a lot. Garfield Rupe says, happy Easter to all in the chat. Yeah, happy Easter, happy Passover, as we said. And Eric P says, Carrie, do you notice any performance differences between the S22 and the S23? I don't notice a performance difference, but I do notice the battery life on the S23 is far superior. I've taken a few pictures with it, and the pictures were always good on the S22, so I don't see any difference. They're still good on the S23. So if there's improvements there, I'm not noticing them with the kind of pictures I take. I had an item from eBay arrive, and it had some damage, and so, for example, I took pictures of it here on the counter. And there's a new app from Android called Nearby Share. It's already part of your Android app, but now they've got it for Windows. So if you type in Nearby Share into Google, you should see that there's a beta download for your Windows desktop, and you can send items without having to hook up a cable or email them to yourself, where you can just hit Nearby Share on your photo, and then you should see your desktop appear if your desktop is nearby, and you just tap it. And then the Nearby Share software on the desktop says, do you want to allow this? And you say yes, and then you have the picture in like half a second. It's very convenient. Then I was able to crop the picture and then attach it to the eBay email. They allow up to 10 pictures, so I could photograph the issue with the product, and then the seller could see exactly what I was talking about and made it right. So before, I used to email the pictures to myself, and then I'd have to wait for the email to arrive and then save the picture. That's a lot easier with Nearby Share. Zach Bischoff says, hello. Well, Zach, you're just joining us as we're wrapping up for today, but you'll be able to go back and start this video from the beginning here as soon as YouTube is done processing it. Good to see you, my friend. Michael says, Carrie, I don't get to see a live stream very often nowadays. It's good to see a live stream. Hey, Michael, well, hopefully you'll catch me during live streams this coming week. I should have live streams most of the week next week. Actually, I was trying to get some videos done earlier this week, but had some issues I had to deal with, and it has prevented me from getting some work done. I had other work that came up. Yeah, when your garage door won't open, suddenly that becomes an important thing I have to work on. And if you notice, actually I got most of the grease off my hands, but that project's not done yet. But hopefully I can get back to getting some videos done, and I'll have a number of live videos, I hope, barring no more unexpected events. I have a lot of backlog to get through, so maybe you'll catch me during one of the live shows next week. I am going to use... Patrick says, why not use the eBay app for Android? I don't use apps on my phone. I don't use the Etsy app. I don't use the eBay app. Grocery stores with the loyalty cards, I still hand them the card. Everybody wants you to put an app on your phone, and I'm not doing it. I absolutely keep my phone bare. I don't even want the app. I shop from Amazon a lot. I will not use the Amazon app on my phone. The last thing I need is for somebody to get my phone and then to have access to all of my accounts. So I keep my phone very bare minimum, and I log into everything manually. The exception would be the security cameras have an app, but you can't watch the security cameras in Windows anyway. What good would it do me? The security cameras would activate on the phone when I'm out. If I'm on Windows, I'm at home, I'm better than a security camera. So security camera apps, any remote apps for turning lights on and off, things like that. That's a lot of apps. I probably have 20 apps on this. Spotify is an important app. But anything where people can spend money, I don't put apps on. That's my own security. It's just a process I follow. And I'm able to do everything I want to do. I don't want to type on the phone anyway, quite honestly. If I'm going to write up a complaint about something, give me a keyboard. I'll go do that on the laptop or the desktop. I'm not going to write out a 400-word complaint, pushing it letter by letter. You got to be out of your mind. But, to each their own. I just don't do that. I'm really sick and tired of everybody wanting me to download their app. I swear I can't go anywhere. I go to get a car wash. Do you have our app? I don't want your app. I go get a haircut. Do you have our app? I don't want your app. Well, what about, the television you're watching? You want the NBC app? You want the TV app? No, stop it. Everybody wants on my phone, and I'm not having it. I don't need all those apps. It's a mess, and then it's hard to find anything. And then there's some security and privacy concerns, along with if the phone were to get lost or stolen. So that's just me. I grew up with the computers in the 1980s. You shouldn't trust these. You should absolutely not trust any automation. And bear in mind, if you lose it or misplace it or it gets stolen, what potential access you've just given to somebody. RoboForm for Android, yes, I do have that installed. Yep. It's not that I have no apps. I'm very, very particular. John Wilson says, same with me, no apps. I use my phone for calling and for the camera. I have the Facebook app, I have the YouTube app, I have the Facebook Messenger app. Spotify is probably the app I use the most. And then the home automation and home security apps. Oh, and the router app, so I can just access to update the router much more conveniently through the phone than through a traditional desktop or laptop. Most of the apps I find are far more inconvenient than just what I'm familiar and comfortable with, which is a keyboard and a mouse. And that may be because that's how I learned. That may very well be that that's what I'm comfortable with because that's how I've always done it. So now to put me on a smaller screen with a little tiny keyboard, I've got to touch each letter. I mean, I can crank out probably 60, 70 words a minute on this, and maybe 10 or 12 words a minute on that. May not be that bad, but then again, it just might. And again, you leave it in the back of an Uber or misplace it, and you're freaking out. I mean, I'm already going to freak out, but I don't need to freak out that much more. But everybody wants you to put their app. Doesn't matter. I wouldn't be surprised if there were still newspaper boys. They'd want you to download their app. That's like the thing now. Even business cards have QR codes that you can scan. Come on. Seriously? It's just, I'm not interested in participating in that game. But again, to each their own. Icarana says, I'm surprised you don't have a Pixel phone with Graphene OS. Never used one, so ignorance may be bliss. I've never used a OnePlus. I've never used a Google Pixel. I have used an iPhone and hated it. And I'm so familiar with the Android operating system, I hate the thought of having to relearn another operating system. I've been very, very happy with the Samsung phones since the Galaxy S9. I've had every version of Samsung Galaxy since then. And it's a very easy upgrade because everything is pretty much the same. There's not a whole lot to learn. To start over again, as somebody who's very busy, it kills me to sit around where I could be working to try and figure out how to do something simple on my phone that I used to do without thought. And in the meantime, I've got a pile of work building up that I'm not getting to because I can't do both of those things at the same time. It gets old for me really, really quick. So if I can take the experience and the knowledge I have and apply it, then that's exactly how I want to grow. I don't want to, okay, I know this, now I'll go learn something else because, well, I'm ignoring this is changing. So then I think I know both platforms when you don't, unless you're using them both regularly. You've got 4 or 5 different platforms out there, and it's bad enough just to be on top of Windows 10 and 11. I don't want to have to learn Apple's OS, and iOS drives me up a wall. I hate with a passion iOS. So it's about being busy, right? It's time management and the scale of things. Everything here is on a scale I think some viewers aren't really comprehending. The number of machines and emails and the amount of work it is to run a business on top of having, what little time you can for your personal life. And honestly, I'd rather spend time in the business because it pays better than my personal life. So given a choice, I like to help people. I don't want people to have to wait any longer than they have to. I also like earning money. Everything's happier. I like to read, but I just don't have time like I used to. I can read a few pages and then I have to put the book down. So I can't just sit down and read a whole book. I just don't have time for it. I can't focus. My brain is thinking about all the stuff waiting to be done. So I can't really get into what I'm reading beyond a few pages because my mind goes off in a different direction. And it occurs to me I have no memory of what I just read. I have no idea. So that's when I know, put the book down. And the only way I'm going to get that stuff out of my mind is to get it done, and then I'll feel better. But while I'm doing that, other work is coming in. It's a nonstop grind. So I think that might explain why I don't have that phone. Not to mention the added expense. If this phone meets all of my needs, why would I switch it? All right, I think that's gonna wrap it up for today. Again, thanks to the folks over at Geekom and Mediums for setting this up so I can review it for you. They did send the unit for review. They are not paying me for the review. I just want to be full disclosure. I did pay for the Intel to compare it. And these machines will be put into use so we can evaluate reliability. But remember, by the time we have that information, this model will likely no longer be available, but at least we can kind of evaluate the kind of products the company makes, the kind of quality, and if we need support, what kind of support we're going to get. So once we get that reliability information, just understand that's going to take time, and it likely will no longer apply to this specific model because this stuff moves quickly, and this model will probably be replaced with another model next year. I'm sure of it. So in the meantime, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the contributions from Kevin Dara and Mike Yazzie, as well as Alan Lindas and William Rainey and Daniel C. Thank you to Richard Palmentier and Planet Cryos, our good friend Buster and John Jack Wilson, and of course Kevin Crowley, who gave us today's first contribution of $4.99. Mark Gaines earlier today, thank you for your contribution. And I'll check the phone real quick. Some folks in the chat had mentioned they sent some things in an email, so let me just check that before we wrap up. Oh, Kevin Dara with another Amazon gift card. Right on. Thank you, Kevin. And I think that's it. We are caught up. Right on. You guys rock. Thank you so much for your participation in the chat, for your questions. Thank you for the contributions, for your memberships. We do have members-only videos every Monday at 1 o'clock. So, of course, for my members, I will see you live, as always, Monday at 1 o'clock. Thank you to Camera Girl, who's somewhere back there. Thank you, Camera. What?
You're welcome.
All right. We have to charge that battery so we can put her back to work.
Yeah.
All right. That's going to wrap it up for me. All the links and everything I talked about today are in the video notes below this video. And your comments and questions are always welcome, so long as they're respectful. You wouldn't think I'd have to specify that last part, but it is the internet. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great, safe holiday weekend. Bye for now.